Hello, and as promised, this is the free body problem video. I know I said in my community tabs that I started it yesterday, but I was not happy with the progress I was doing. The focus and direction it was in was inadequate to what I was wanting to present. So I scrapped everything. I will still increase elements of what I used then, but I will revise from the start the direction. And for clarity, this will be completely audio only, as I do not have enough footage to show the length this will probably be. And with that saying, let's begin with the actual content of the production itself, shall we? For complete context, for those who actually have read the books, I am so far on page 149 of the books, so I will be referencing stuff from the full sorry, this is trying to get the number correct. From the full 426 or 7 or so first book and up to page 75 approximately of the second book. And that's in total bookmark wise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 10, 11, 12 bookmarks I'll be quoting and referencing. And basically, let's get onto the main core analysis, shall we? I can't cover every single facet of the book in this session because it's a very long book. And as a direct result of that, it's a case in which the core themes need to be addressed as a priority, and therefore, as a direct result, the core themes are such surrounding the nature of humanity, what makes humanity, and how you address the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox is simply put the question of the nature of extraterrestrial life or aliens, and the contact between aliens and of technology and in relation to it. It's basically saying, if there is alien life, why can't we see it? And does it exist? And obviously, if you know what this is about, this obviously answers the Fermi paradox as affirming that alien life does exist. I will go into motivations as well of why both sides of the faculties in the book have their reasoning and logic behind it. But one thing that is super critical to understand, as I mentioned in a comment section regarding the actual Netflix adaptation, that if it is actually going to adhere to ideals of liberalism, that's going to miss the point entirely. Because a lot of the thing about this is, yes, to some extent, motivations of the ETO to some extent are bound by some degrees of liberalism itself. That's true. But the thing is, the core motivations as a whole on the most characters is not liberalism in any respects or ways. It's rather more of a collective focus towards the survival of humanity itself in face of a looming disaster. And that is why the dynamics is in place. So first I'll be going over the dynamics of motivations. And more importantly in this is the motivations of Traitors itself. For example, explain to people why then Traitors is even coming to Earth itself. And why then the dynamic of the ETO and all those things is in place as well, when that's going to be an important factor to lead into bridging the dynamic surrounding the question of the free body problem. Other core ideals include stuff like defeatism in terms of those who actually stay true to humanity itself. How then do you deal with the nature of what is a potentially unwinnable war, and how do you keep up a fighting spirit when you're psychologically and spiritually under attack by the hands of the Traitors collaborators? Traitors and the ETO, which is the Earth Traitors organization, is an important factor because Traitors itself has an impact on the overall development of the systems in the thing itself. They have a recruitment thing going on, and they basically want people to be in a certain state of mind as to basically be passive or weak as to hinder development. Because that is the dynamic on that is to say that Traitors is in a situation in which their homeland is basically dead. They have a situation on their home planet in which they are facing massive ecological disasters, which they cannot control, but it causes such devastation that they have to adopt to such extreme measures for basic survival in the first place. And as a direct result of that nature, then Traitors has to then develop a authoritarian culture to basically survive in the meanwhile in a transit between space and finding a new Eden, in their own words. Finding a new Eden is their primary focus, therefore, because once Traitors can find a new Eden, Traitors civilization can prosper once again. The issue is, as you all know, finding areas in the universe of where you can actually have life is very difficult. And there's a chance that you could potentially just travel for a long time and not find anywhere suitable for life in any way or form. And that's why the whole culture of escapism and trying to find a new homeland is part of the key dynamics. Traitors itself, therefore, is in a situation where it is fight or die situation. The humans on Earth are in a similar situation due to the Traitors crisis, and that is the interesting dynamic. What makes humanity? What makes this? But one thing to note about this is that, in terms of the relationship between the thing, in the first book, up to the actual end of the book, where the humans did actually intercept the messages between Traitors and the ETO member leadership with the destruction of the ship. If you know the book, you know what it is. I'm talking about there. And in that exchange, they received a shit ton of information about contact between Traitors and Earth, and that is where the direct relationship is to play, because the actual impacts that Traitors and I'm assuming in that information, the human leadership then figured out the nature of Traitors' predicament. But at the same time, though, that does not necessarily mean that that humanity or Earth can just surrender and just give them sanctuary, because that's not a possible outcome either, given they come with hostile intentions. And that is the predicament. That's the predicament this is set in. It's a situation where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, where ultimately you are having a hardship on one end and an extremity on another. Is it necessarily Earth's fault that Traitors is coming for Earth? No. The only reason Traitors is coming for Earth is because Earth exists where it exists, and nothing else. And does necessarily Traitors have any specific grudge against Earth? At the same time, not necessarily, no, because for all they know, Earth is the only location that has a planet worthy of life itself in the universe, in their direct pathline. And that is why it's not really necessarily intentional malice on either end towards Traitors or humans, but rather just a necessity of authoritarianism in Traitors for the survival and a need for homeland, with Earth being, frankly, one of the only suitable places for Traitors to potentially rebirth their civilization. Another dynamic about this as well is how the dynamic between fear. Both are scared of each other, but for very different reasons. Earth is scared of Traitors due to the technology and potential threat of the outside influence. Traitors is scared of Earth and humanity, because basically they are stuck now in a predicament where they can't necessarily expand their technology. They are stuck in a situation in which if they lose ships or lose people, they can't get them replaced. So they need to be super specific at what they do, and that's why, for example, depictions in the book, it's in the Free Body Bomb book itself, depicts how the conditions of life for Trisolarian civilians is basically under complete martial law. And it probably will remain that way until they arrive on Earth, which will probably create a new dynamic. For example, Triceratops is scared of Earth because as per in the book it said. This is not the exact quote because I can't remember the exact quote because I didn't cite it because I can't find it for a second. But this is paraphrasing. That Triceratops took 2,000 years to get into the era where they can flee. Earth took 1,000 years to get into the atomic era. And basically by in this extract, he was talking about how the speed between Earth development and the speed between Triceratops development was so drastically different. Earth developed at half the time that of Triceratops. So the 450 years that is a time in the Triceratops timeline is necessarily a case in which Triceratops is scared that if humanity develops to a certain extent anymore, that it could potentially cause a huge problem, because then ultimately it could fundamentally break the cycles that would mean technological superiority. And that is where the dynamic of it is, because there's a mutual fear of each other due to the power dynamics. But there's one critical thing in which I will go over in one extract in book 2, which will highlight this point as well. And this summarizes these elements upon it, and I will now go into some extracts of the book itself to emphasize the point. This quote I mentioned in the first video regarding it, but it's worth mentioning again because it highlights some narratives of motivations of the ETO membership. This is on page 24, Free Body Problem Book 1. And that is where it says, but card books allowed, yet to see that, from nature's perspective, their use was indistinguishable from the Cultural Revolution and equally destructive to our world. If this was so, then how many other acts of humankind, has he normal or even righteous, were in reality evil? As she continued to mull over these thoughts, a deduction made her shudder. It's possible that the relationship between humanity and evil, similar to the relationship between the ocean and the iceberg floating on the surface. Both the ocean and the iceberg are made of the same material. That the iceberg seems separate is only because it is in a different form. In reality, it is but a part of the vast ocean. It was impossible to expect a moral awakening from humankind itself, just like it was impossible to expect humans to lift off the earth by putting up on their own hair. To achieve moral awakening requires a force outside the human race. This thought determined the entire direction of Ye's life. 4 days after receiving the book, Ye went to the company's greenhouse where Bai was living to return the book. Ye opened the door and saw Bai was lying on his bed, exhausted, covered by wood shavings and mud. When Bai saw Ye, he struggled to give up. Did you work today? Ye said. I've been here all day with the company for so long, I just can't walk around. It basically gets this going into more context. But as you can see, that's the foundation in which will form some of the motivations later of what is the foundation of the ETO membership. And that is a dynamic in which is really important in this book as well. The ETO loses trust that humans can be good people in terms of the relationship between the world and nature. They want to they want to instead put a hope in that something outside the human race can fix and address the nature of the earth itself. They want to have a focus which is surrounded around the direction of a intervention from other powers. Often this is on the assumption that the ETO and those of an ETO which are in this line of thinking are thinking, therefore, that the other power is of greater morality than humanity itself, which is in fact is completely wrong in this context, because as per the descriptions of how they treat people on their ship towards going to Earth, that's completely disproven. But that's not necessarily to put blame on the individuals within ETO itself, because the ETO members themselves, the rank and file members anyway, do not know the true nature of Traitors, do not know the nature of the ETO, and do not know the true nature of what they are committing themselves to. They do not know the stakes. They do not know what they're actually standing by when they say betray Earth, betray humanity. And when they say down with human tyranny, and that's then a case in which you really can't say much about this dynamic, because it's like, I mean, you can, but it's simply put that you think there's a greater power can intervene and have a greater moral awakening. To this point, though, what's next? Yeah, here we go. This is reinforced again, where it talks about the recruitment phase. This is on page. Give me a second. This is from page 245, chapter 18. I'm just stopping so I can focus the breath. Pan continued. Everyone here is an excellent free body player. You have the best scores and are devoted to it. I believe that free body is already an important part of your lives. It is part of what keeps me alive, said the young doctoral student. I saw that on accident on my grandson's computer, the old philosopher said, lifting his pipe stem. The young man abandoned it after a few tries, saying it was too abstruse. But I was so attracted to it. I find it strange, terrible, but also beautiful. So much information is hidden beneath a simple representation. A few players nodded at this description, including Wang himself. Wang received Dashi's reply text. Dashi is a member of the Battle Command Center, which is anti-ETO. We have also seen him. No worries, carry on. Play the fanatic in front of them, but not too much that you can't pull it off. Yes, the author agreed, nodded. I like the literary elements of Free Body. It rises and falls. The rises and falls of the 203 civilizations evokes the qualities of epics in a new form. She mentions 203 civilizations, but Wang had already experienced 184. Wang told Wang that Free Body progressed independently for each player, possibly with different worlds. I'm a bit sick of the world, said the young reporter. Free Body is already messing reality. Really? Pan said interestedly. Me too, the software company vice president said. Compared to Free Body, reality is so vulgar and unexciting. It's too bad that it's only a game, said the power company executive. And this line here is going to be a line that's super important because let's give some context before I move on. The Free Body game is something in which, in the series, is what the cult made as a recruitment drive. They basically how it worked with was, if anyone had a fascination or devotion to the game itself, or interest in Traitors culture that they represented, they were basically recruited into the cult itself as to betray humanity. Very good, Pan said. Wayne noticed his eyes sparkling with excitement. I have a question everyone here wants to. I have a question. I think everyone here wants to know the answer to. Wang said. I know what it is, but you might as well ask. Is Free Body only a game? The other players nodded. Clearly, the question was also on their minds. Pan stood up and said solemnly, "What if Free Body or Triceratops really does exist?" Well, it is. Where is it? Several players asked in unison. After looking at each of them in turn, Pan sat down and spoke. Some questions I can answer, others I cannot. But if you are meant to be with Triceratops, all your questions will be answered someday. And this is where the appeal of dragging them in to being devoted in the first place is super important. Because Triceratops is basically dead. They will never know the true Triceratops because Triceratops is not going to recover. What they don't know in this context is when Triceratops comes, they'll be basically enslaved or killed. I haven't read that far ahead, but working off what I've read of it so far, that is what is going to be happening realistically. After looking at then, does the game really portray Triceratops accurately? The reporter said. First, the ability of Triceratops to dehydrate through many cycles of civilization is real. In order to adapt to their unpredictable natural environment and avoid extreme environmental conditions unsuitable for the life, they can completely expel the water in their bodies and in turn into dry, fibrous objects. What does Triceratops look like? Tricerarians look like? Pan shook his head. I don't know. I really don't. In every cycle of civilization, the appearance of Tricerarians is different. However, the game does not primarily portray something else that really existed on Triceratops. However, the game does portray something that really does exist in Triceratops. The Tricerarian formation computer. Ha! I thought that's the most unrealistic element. The software company vice president said, I conducted a test with more than 100 employees at a company. Even the idea, even if the idea worked, a computer made of people would probably operate at a speed slower than the manual computation. Pan said in mysterious style, smile. Yes, you're right, but suppose that 30 million soldiers forming the computer each one is capable of raising and lowering the black and white flags 100,000 times per second. And suppose also light cavalry and soldiers on the main bus can run at several times the speed of sound or even faster, then the result will be very different. You asked about the appearance of Triceratops just now. According to some signs, the bodies of Triceratops who formed the computers were coveted and purely reflective surface, which probably evolved as a response to survival under extreme conditions of sunlight. The mirror-like surface could only be deformed into any shape and communicated with each other by focusing light on their bodies. This kind of light speed could transmit information extremely rapid and was the foundation of Triceratops' formation computer. Of course, this was still a very inefficient machine, but it was still capable of completing calculations that were difficult to be performed manually. The computer did it in people. Did in fact make its first appearance in Triceratops as formation of people before becoming mechanical, then electronic. Panted up by pacing behind the players. As a game, Free Body only borrows from the background of human society to simulate the development of Triceratops. This is done to give players a familiar environment. The real Triceratops is very different from the world of games of the game, but the existence of the three suns is real. They are they are the foundation of the Triceratops environment. Development of this game must have a cost and an enormous amount of effort, the Vice President said. But the goal is to clean up profit. The goal of Free Body is very simple and pure. To gather those of us who have common ideals. And that's why I'm saying the recruitment methodology here, because common ideals, support for Triceratops, discontent with human life, yada yada yada. What ideals do we have in common exactly? Wang immediately regretted his question. He wanted whether he was asking it's an hostile. Pan studied everyone meaningful, then added in a soft voice. How do you feel if Truslarian civilization was to enter our world? This isn't necessarily a question of if, but how would you react to it? Because it's gonna come regardless. I'll be happy, the young poet said, was the first to break the silence. I've lost hope in the human race after what I've seen in recent years. Human society is capable of self-improvement. And we need the intervention of an outside force. I agree, the author shouted. She was very excited, as though finally finding an outlet for pent-up feelings. The human race is hideous. I spent the first half of my life unreeling this ugliness with a scalpel of literature. But now I'm sick of the work of dissertation. I yearn for trisolarian civilization to bring the real beauty of this world. Pat said nothing. The glint of excitement appeared in his eyes again. The old philosopher waved his pipe, which had gone out. He spoke with a serious mien. Let's discuss the question a bit more in depth. What's the impression of the Aztecs? Dark and bloody, the author said. Blood-drenched pyramids lit by insidious fires, seen through dark forests. Those are my impressions. The philosopher noted, very good. Then try to imagine if the Spanish conquistadors did not intervene, what would have been the influence of a civilization on human history? You're calling black and white black. The software company vice president said the conquerors who invaded the Americans were nothing more than murderers and robbers. Even so, they at least prevented the Aztecs from developing without bounds and turning the Americans into a bloody great empire. Then, civilization as we know it wouldn't have appeared in the Americas, and democracy wouldn't have thrived until much later. Indeed, maybe they wouldn't have appeared at all. This is key to the question. No matter what the Truslarians are like, their life will be good news for the terminally ill human race. But have you thought that the fact that the Aztecs were completely destroyed by the Western invaders? The power company executive asked. He looked around as seeing these people for the first time. Your thoughts are very dangerous. You mean profound, the doctoral student said, raising a finger. He noted vigorously at the philosopher. I had the same thought, but I didn't know how to express it. You said it. You said it so well. After I was silent, Pan turned to Wang. The other six have given their views. What about you? I stand with them, Wang said, pointing to the reporter and the philosopher. He kept his answer simple, and the less the better. Very good, Pan said. He turned to the software company and the power company executive. You two are no longer welcome at this meetup, and you are no longer appropriate members of the free body. Your ID will be deleted. Please leave now. Thank you. The two stood up and looked at each other, then glazed around, confused, and left. Pan held out his hand to the remaining five, shaking each person's member, then said suddenly, "We are now comrades." And that, for example, is a important section because it highlights the dynamic of what it is about in the ETO. They want the ETO to be welcoming to extremism, welcoming and have a staunch, hardline, anti-human mindset. But don't think this is anti-humanism though itself, because as I'll get to in a second when I get my other book out, humanism has two meanings. There's an atheist one and a theistic aligned version of humanism. So that's not entirely separate from reality itself. But these two extracts, for example, highlight the dynamic between the ETO and some of the motivations of the ETO. This is only beginning, so if you want to take a break temporarily from this, you can take a break, mark down in the comment section or somewhere else the time slot you're currently at. And if I can, I will try and break this section off specifically as well on my end, just to try and help along the way. Because this would be a long video in the grand scheme of things, because there's a lot of concepts to go over, because it's a fascinating conversation. Humanism. Humanism is an important rhetoric towards this whole dynamic. Humanism, therefore, can be defined between two classifications of humanism: theistic and atheistic humanism. For example, right, this is the more atheistic sense of humanism itself, if I get it correct. And then I'll go into a philosophy guidebook which has a shit ton of definitions, which is actually quite good. But yeah, which also defines a theistic humanism. Humanism is a approach to life based on reason and our common humanity, recognizing that our moral values are properly founded on human nature and experience alone. Humanism is a democratic and ethical life stance which affirms that human beings have the right and responsibility to give meaning and shape their own meanings to their own lives. It stands for the building of more humane society through ethics based on human and other natural values in the spirit of reasoning, free inquiry, free human capabilities. It is not theistic and does not accept supernatural views of reality. Most humanists would agree with the ideals below. There are no supernatural beings. The material universe is the only thing that exists. Science provides the only reliable source of knowledge about the universe. We only live this life. There is no afterlife, and no such thing as reincarnation. Human beings can live ethically and fulfilling lives without religious beliefs. Human beings derive their moral code from the lessons of history, personal experience, and thoughts, and so on. I'll keep it on this because I'll be showing you the next contrasting worldview. Just give me 2 seconds. Right, let's get on to this. This is from the Oxford Companion to Philosophy, no edition, and that is from the. You probably need that just if you do want to know what I'm referencing. 2005. Humanism, and this also gives a new extract to this, to which gives a comparison as to talk about the ETO and the anti-ETO elements. The tendency to emphasize man and his status, importance, powers, achievements, interests, or authority. Humanism has many different connotations, which depend largely on what it is being contrasted with, as well as denoting particular claims about man. It can also denote the tendency to study man at all. Early Greek thought began by studying the cosmos as a whole, and particular phenomena in it, such as weather, earthquakes, etc. The attempt question of logic and metaphysics in so-called humanist movements arose in 5th century BC when Socrates and so-called philosophers down from heaven to earth. As Cicero later put in by introducing social, political, and moral questions. Humanism is also associated with the Renaissance when it comes to denote a move away from God to man as the center of the interest. God still remained as a creator and the supreme authority. The Renaissance humanists were far from being atheists, but his activity was seen as less immediate, more some control than as day-to-day interference. And this enabled scientific outlook to arise, which saw the universe as governed by general laws, albeit laid down by God. One feature which made this specifically a humanist development was the emphasis it both pre-assumed and by successes encouraged on the ability of man to find out about the universe by his own efforts and more to control it. It was a conflict between science and religion arose in the 19th century, largely because of Darwinism inconsistencies with fundamentalist reading, of the Bible that humanism acquired its modern association with atheism or agnosticism. Agnosticism. Humanism is often uh, called scientific humanism, then becomes associated with rationalism, not in its main physical senses, but in that of the appeal to reason, in contrast to revelation or religious authority as a means of finding out about the natural world, or means of and destiny of man, as and also as giving ground for morality in terms of ethical humanism is sometimes used in this last context. For the outlook can be also called scientific humanism, insofar as it claims that science can provide a basis for morality. However, this appeal to reason in ethics should be distinguished from the common in the 17th and 18th centuries, and not without echoes of the 12th century, where reason was opposed to not to religious authority, but to feelings or emotions. It's very convoluted to some extent, but it's highlighting a key distinction which I will go over with regards to the ETO and all of that. The motivation behind ETO, in some ways, is a partial humanist mindset. As pointed out in the Oxford Companion Guide, humanism can be it serving a deity mindset equally as much as an atheistic mindset. So it is not impossible to say that then the ETO is something which is functioning of a advancement of humanity through the lens of the deity that is the Trisolaris civilization itself. Whereas the tendency in the anti-ETO stuff is less so about Trisolaris, but about what they can bring, but rather about the material, down to earth, scientific humanism, which is about what we currently do with our current life and our current predicament, and how do we as humans get past the Trisolaris crisis. Going back to the book chapters itself, on page 296, where it covers the first contact in terms of the communication, this is the thing which determined the nature of the contact. The contact in this was defined clearly as hostile, as defined by the book itself, where it says, based on test data, deciphering a transmission suspected of being a message might require a few days of, or even a few months of computing time, and the result would be a failure more than half the time. But this time, as soon as the file containing the original transmission was submitted, display showed that the deciphering was complete. Yeah, opened the resulting document, and for the first time, a human read a message from another world. The content was not what anyone had imagined. It was a warning, repeated 3 times. Do not answer. Do not answer. Do not answer. Still caught up by dizzying excitement and confusion. Yeah, deciphered a second message. This world has received your message. I'm a pacifist in this world. It is your luck that your civilization, that I am the first to receive your message. I'm warning you, do not answer, do not answer, do not answer. There are tens of millions of stars in your direction. As long as you do not answer, the world will not be able to ascertain your source of your transmission. But if you do answer, the source will be located right away. Your planet will be invaded, your world will be conquered. Do not answer, do not answer, do not answer. As she read the flashing green text on display, Ye was no longer capable of thinking clearly. Her mind, inhabited by shocking excitement, could only understand this. No more than 9 years has passed since the time she has sent the message to the sun. Then the source of the transmission could be around four light years away. It could have only come from the closest extrastellar star system, Alpha Centauri. The universe was not desolate. The universe was not empty. The universe was full of life. Humankind had cast their gaze to the end of the universe, but they had no idea that intelligent life had already existed around the stars closest to them. Yeah, started at a waveform direction. The signal continued to stream from the universe into Red Coast antenna. She opened up the interface and began real-time deciphering. The message began to show up immediately on the screen. During the next 4 hours, Ye learned of the existence of Traitors, learned of the civilization that had been reborn again and again, and learned of the plan to migrate to the stars. In 4 in the morning, the transfers from Alpha Centauri ended. The ciphering system continued to run endlessly and emitted unceasing string of failed codes. The Red Coast monetary system was once again only hearing the noises of the universe, but yeah, was certain what she experienced was the transmission button, long rectangle, very similar to the space key on the keyboard, sorry, except it was red. Ye's hand hovered 2 centimeters over it. The fate of the entire human race was now tied to these slender fingers. Without hesitation, Ye pressed the button. "What are you doing?" one of the men on duty asked, still sleepy. Yes, smiled at him, said nothing. She pressed the yellow button to stop the transmission. Then she moved the control stick until the antenna was pointed elsewhere. She left the control stick and walked away. And for example, where it says this, she actually did respond back to this in there where it says later on page 300. The message that was winging its way up to the sun said, as sent by Ye, "Come here, I will help you conquer this world. Our civilization is no longer capable of solving its own problems. We need your force to intervene." The newly risen sun dazzled. Yeah, Wenjie. Not too far from the door to the control room, she collapsed into the lawn into a faint. When she woke up, she found herself in a base clinic next to Young. And that's where the first contact and why Trustlaurus is even invading Earth in this context. And that's why it's super important to this dynamic of the first contact. The next extract is from page 340 when talking about Mike Evans joining the ETO. For example, let's start back in the early thing. Yeah, suddenly gazing at the waves of light cast among the trees by the setting sun, listening to the noise from the loggers, her thoughts returned to 20 years ago, to the forest of the greater the mountains. I can't say the word properly. That's probably that's what I'm saying it. Where she had once had a similar conversation with another man. It's talking about logging and deforestation, by the way. And where it said, where can you say something in the book? "Do you know why I came here?" Evans continued. "The seeds of pan-species communism had sprouted long time ago in the ancient East. You think of Buddhism? Yes, the focus on Christianity is man, even though all the species were placed into Noah's Ark. Other species were never given the same status as humans. But Buddhism is focused on saving all lives. That is why I came to the East. But it's obvious now to everyone that everywhere is the same." Yes, that's true. Everywhere people are the same. What can I do now? What is the purpose of my life? I have $4.5 billion in an international oil company. But what good is all that? Humans have surely invested more than $45 billion in saving species near extinction, and probably more than 455 billion already spent on saving the environment from degradation. But what's the use? Civilization continues to follow the path of destruction of all life on Earth except humans. 4.5 billion is enough to build an aircraft carrier, But even if we built 1,000 aircraft carriers, it would be impossible to stop the madness of humanity. Mike, this is what I wanted to tell you about. Human civilization is no longer capable of improving on its own strength. Can there be any source of power outside humanity? Question mark. Even if God once existed, he died long ago. Yes, there are powers. The sunset, and the loggers have left. The forest and the Loess hills were silent. Yeah, now told Evans the whole story of Red Coast and Trisolaris. Evans listened quietly, and when Yeah was finished, a bright moon rose from the east and cast specked shadows on the forest floor. Evans said, "I still can't believe what you just told me. It's too fantastic, but luckily I had resources to confirm this. If what you said is true," he extended his hand and spoke with the words of every new member of the future ETO would have to say upon joining, "Let us be comrades." That, for example, is talking about how the members of the ETO are preying on people who have disadvantage, which is very similar to what cults and religions do in the real world, where they prey on disadvantage of people. They rather than saying that it's wrong and you can try and sort it in the means of humanity. Yeah, in this case was being a evangelical person trying to say otherwise and say instead that humans are evil across the board, opposed to humanity, join the ETO. Basically, ETO is not yet made in the book. It comes a little later in the timeline, but Evans became a critical member of the ETO, and he became one of the most fundamentalist ETO members in the ranks. And that's why this is important to mention about theistic humanism. It's not necessarily humanism for Evans because he wants to promote everyone being equal, but still, there's a sense of humanism in there where he wants to advocate that humanity can't change if we don't make measures to actually change ourselves, and if we don't make the measures to change ourselves, we are bound to repeat the same natural disasters over and over of greed, corruption, and all that stuff, which will ultimately lead to a catastrophe in terms of our development being useless and fundamentally weak. This is the fundamental point of this segment here. Evans then put blind faith in Trisolaris instead of looking into other humans to fix the problem. And this is one point of the fanaticalization of the ETO itself. They wanted people, in this case again, as per Evans, that are willing to commit 110% to the cause of destroying humanity itself. And to this extent, Evans is a case where his recruitment could have been avoided if he only had more optimism and more care to work towards a better future. Mike Evans, though I guess at the same time, couldn't really do that because if I remember correctly, he's an American, so there's very little he can actually do. But in the grand scheme of things, he still could do something other than just join the ETO and basically advocating for the death of all humanity itself. That is the extract of this point here. So let's move forward into this one. Actually, no, I'm going to wait because this one is going into the interrogations phase, which I will cover in a second because it's actually quite interesting. I'm leaping ahead again in terms of the plot and page number because I'm only covering extracts. But yeah, enjoy. We then move into the next section, which is one of the interrogation scenes. There's a few of these scenes, but Interrogation scene 1. We will now begin today's interrogation. We hope you cooperate with us again as you did last time. Yeah? You already know everything, I know, so by the fact now there are many things I'd like to learn from you. Interrogator. I don't think you told us everything. First, we want to know this. Among the messages of Traitors sent to Earth, what are the contents of those portions that the Adventists intercepted and withheld? I just want to clarify. Adventist is a sect of the ETO. I can't tell you. They had a tight organization. I only know that they withheld some messages. Interrogator. Change the subject. After the Adventists monopolized communications with Traitors, did you build a third West Coast base? Yeah. I did have such a plan, but we only built a receiver, and then construction stopped. The equipment and base were then dismantled. Interrogator. Why? Yeah. Because there were no more messages coming from Alpha Centauri. There was nothing on my frequency. I think you already confirmed this. Interrogator. Yes. In other words, at least as of 4 years ago, Traitors decided to terminate all communications with Earth. Which makes the messages intercepted by the Adventists even more important. Yeah, true. But there's really nothing more than I can tell you about them. Interrogator. Pausing a few seconds. Then let's find out the topic where you can tell us more. Mike Evans lied to you, isn't that right? Yeah, you can put it that way. He never revealed to me the thoughts deep buried in his heart, and only expressed a sense of duty towards other species on the planet. I never realized that he had a sense of duty that caused him hatred of human civilization to develop to such extremes that he could make destruction of human race his ultimate ideal. Interrogator. Let's look at the current composition of the ETO. The Adventists would like to destroy the human race by means of alien power. The Redemptionists worship the alien civilization as God. As a god. The survivors wish to betray other humans to buy their own survival. None of these is in line with the original ideals of using alien civilization in the way to reform humanity. Yeah. I started a fire, but I could not control how it burnt. Interrogator. Your plans to eliminate the Adventists from within the ETO, and you even began to implement this plan. But Judgment Day is the core base and command center for Adventists, and Mike Evans and other Adventist leadership usually reside there. Why didn't you attack the ship first? Most of the armed forces of Redemptionists are loyal to you, and you should have enough firepower to sink or capture it. Yeah, it's because of the messages of from the Lord that they intercepted. All these messages are stored in the second West Coast base on some computer on Judgment Day. If we attacked the ship, the Adventists could erase all the messages if they realized that loss was immediate. These messages are too important for us to risk losing them. For Redemptionists, losing these messages would be as if a Christian lost the Bible or Muslims lost the Quran. I think you are faced with the same problem. The Adventists are holding lost messages hostage, and that is why Judgment Day has remained unmolested so far. Interrogator. Do you have any advice for us? Yeah, no. Interrogator. You also call Traitors your lord. Does this mean that you also develop religious feelings towards Traitors like Redemptionists, or are you already a follower of Traitors' faith? Yeah, not at all. Just a habit. I do not wish to discuss it any further. Interrogator. Let's go back to those intercepted messages. Maybe you don't know the exact contents, but surely you must have heard of some of the details. Yeah. Probably. Only basis femurs. Interrogator such as? Did Traitors transfer certain technologies to Adventists? Technologies more advanced than current human technology? Yeah. Not likely, because no such technology would risk falling into your hands. Interrogator. One last question, and and most important. Until now, has Trustlaris only sent radio waves to Earth? Yeah, almost true. Interrogator. Almost. Yeah. The current Trisolarian civilization is capable of space travel at 1/10 speed of light. This technology leapt. Sorry, I'm moving my hand because this one's 13-bit. This technology leapt occurred a few decades ago in Earth years. Before that point, the maximum speed has hovered around 1,000th the speed of light. The tiny probes that they sent to Earth have not even completed 1/100th of the journey between there and here. Interrogator. Then the question: if the Treslarian fleet has launched is capable of flight at 1/10 of speed of light, it should only take 40 years to reach the solar system. So why are you saying it will take more than 400 years? Yeah. Here's the thing. The Treslarian interstellar fleet is composed of incredibly massive spaceships. Accelerating them is a slow process. 1/10 speed of light is only their maximum speed, but they cannot cruise at the speed for a long time before at this speed for a long time before decelerating as they approach Earth. Also, the source of the propulsion for Treslarian fleets is a matter of antimatter annihilation. In front of each ship is a large magnetic field shaped like a funnel to collect antimatter particles from space. This collection process is slow, and only after a long wait can it gather enough antimatter to allow the ship to accelerate for a brief period. Thus, the fleet's acceleration occurs in spurts, intercepted by long fleets of coasting to collect fuel. This is why the time it takes the Truslarian fleet to reach the solar system is 10 times longer than the flight of a small probe. Interrogator. Then what do you mean by almost just now? Yeah, we're talking about the speed of space travel with a certain context. Outside of context, even backward human beings are capable of accelerating certain objects too close to the speed of light. Interrogator. A pause. By context, do you mean that macro scale or micro scale humans can already use higher scale particle accelerators to speed up subatomic particles to near speed of light? These particles are the objects you mean, correct? Yeah, you're very intelligent. You're very clever. Interrogator. Points at earpiece. I have the world's most foremost scientist behind me. Yeah. Yes, I meant subatomic particles. 6 years ago, in the distant Truslarian stellar system, Truslaris accelerated two hydrogen nuclei to near the speed of light and shot them towards the solar system. These two hydrogen nuclei or protons arrived at the solar system 2 years ago, then reached Earth. Interrogator. 2 protons? They only sent 2 protons. That's almost nothing. Yeah, laughs. You said almost. That's the limit of Truslarian power. They can accelerate something as small as a proton to near speed of light. So over a distance of 4 light years, they can only send 2 protons. Interrogator. At the macroscopic level, 2 protons are nothing. Even in a single cellulum on a bacterium would include several billion protons. What's the point? Yeah, they're a lock. Interrogator. A lock? What are you locking? Yeah, they're sealing off progress of human science because of the existence of these 2 protons. Humanity will not be able to make any important scientific developments during the 4.5 centuries until the arrival of the Truslarian fleet. Evans once said that at the day of arrival of 2 protons was the day that human science died. That's too fantastic. How can that be? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. In the eyes of Truslarian civilization, we're probably not even a primitive species. We're not even primitive savages. We might be mere bugs. That is the first one I'm covering here, which is quite interesting to cover. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Motorbike so loud. So I just was making sure that it didn't cut into the recording. And that's a first extract. Key things from this is talking about part of the plans of Traitors. Because the basically containment policy of Traitors, because of their slow progress, and this is something which I, if you want to know exactly how it works, I implore you to read the books first, as to give context to the situation. Let's then move forward into the next part of the interrogation, which is this one. 3 days later. Interrogator. Sorry, just clear now. Do you understand trust-allowing civilization? Yeah. No, we only see very limited information. No one has real detailed knowledge of trust-allowing civilization except Mike Evans and other core members of the Adventists who intercept their messages. Interrogator. Then why do you have such hope for it, thinking that it can reform and perfect human society? Yeah. If they can cross distance between the stars and come to our world, the science must have developed to a very advanced stage. A society with such advanced science must also have more advanced moral standards. And this is the crux of what I was saying. It's a false hope narrative they are working off, because they have no goddamn clue, basically, what they are fighting for. Even the founder of the basically the founder of the ETO doesn't understand their core morals itself. Interrogator. Do you think this conclusion you draw to is scientific? Yeah, unable to answer. Interrogator. Let me presume to guess. Your father was deeply influenced by your grandfather's beliefs that only science could save China, and you were deeply influenced by your father. Yeah. Saying quietly, I don't know. Interrogator. We've already obtained all the trust-allowing messages intercepted by the Adventists. Yeah. Oh, what happened to Evans? Interrogator. He died during the operation to capture, doesn't they? But his posture of the body pointed us to the computers holding copies of trust-allowing messages. Thankfully, they were all encoded with the same self-interpreting codes used by Red Coast. Yeah. Was that a lot of data? Yes. Interrogator. Yes. Around 28 gigabytes. Yeah. That's impossible. Instead of communication is very inefficient. How can so much data be transmitted? Interrogator. We thought that at first too, but things were not as we had imagined. Not even in our boldest, most fantastic imaginations. How about this? Please read the section of the preliminary analysis of captured data, and you'll see the reality of the Trisolarian civilization compared with your beautiful fantasies. And that's what I'm saying. In the grand scheme of things, the actual information control is another factor in this. In that, if doesn't know this fact of what the Trisolarian civilization even is, then that was the question. How would you know then if other members of the ETO and Trisolarian aligned people would know what it means? And this is a kind of fundamental point of what this is about. This is where, for example, right, I would say that when denied it being a religion or faith, I don't really believe her, because with her inability to support the claim about her position about Trisolarian civilization being scientific, that means he's working off blind faith that Trisolarian civilization has more advanced moral standards. And if she's got assumption, how many more others in the ETO in the book itself has that assumption working with this morality? Because the thing is, if they think Trisolarian civilization has more moral standards, if they can get flight travel, that's a big breach. Just because you can have interstellar travel doesn't necessarily mean you are superiorly moral. Being superior in morals is something subjective and which is separate from reality of things. And this is an interesting dynamic of this thing which is being mentioned. What is real versus what is false? What is the imagination and what is the realism of events surrounding the Traitors crisis in the book series itself? The next part I'll be covering is covering the conversation from the Traitors civilization itself. This is on page 390. If anyone has the book and want to find this yourself, if you don't believe me. I've already ordered the Traitors fleet to turn towards the star, but things are not as optimistic as you think. Given what we know, the right now the fleet is sailing to a certain death. The consuls calm down. Does anyone understand my conclusion? I do, said the science console. We've studied the first messages from Earth carefully. The second most worthy of attention is a history. Let's observe the facts. Humans took more than 1,000 years to progress from the hunter-gatherer age to the agricultural age. To get to the agricultural age to industrial age took a few hundred Earth years. But to go from the industrial age to the atomic age took only 200 years. Therefore, in only a few dozen Earth decades, they entered the information age. This civilization possesses a terrifying ability to accelerate their progress. On Traitors, of the much more 2,000 civilizations, including our own, none have experienced such accelerating development. The progress of science and technology in all Traitors civilizations has been at a constant or decelerating pace. In our world, each technology age requires approximately the same amount of time for steady, slow progress. The Princips nodded. The fact that 4,500,000 hours for now, when the Traitors fleet has reached Earth, that civilization technology level would have long surpassed ours. Due to their accelerating development, the journey of Traitors fleet is long and arduous, and the fleet must pass through two stellar dust belts. It is very likely that only half of the ships will reach Earth's solar system, while the rest will perish along the way. And then, the Traitors fleet will be at the mercy of much more powerful Earth civilization. This is not an expedition, but a funeral procession. But it is true, Princips. Then there are more frightening consequences, the military consul said. Yes, it's easy to imagine the location of Traitors has been exposed. To eliminate future threats, an interstellar fleet from Earth will launch to counterattack against us. It's possible that long before an expanded sun swallows this planet, Traitors civilization will have already been extinguished by humans. The bright future suddenly turned impossibly grim. The attendants fell silent. The president said, What we must do next is contain the progress of science on Earth. Luckily, as soon as we received the first messages from Earth, we began to develop plans to do so. As of now, we discovered favourable conditions for realizing these plans. The responses we just received were sent by an Earth traitor. Thus, we have reason to believe that there are many alienated forces within Earth civilization, and we must exploit that force to the fullest. Princips. That is not all easy. But we have a thin thread of communication with the Earth. It takes more than 8,000 hours to complete an exchange. But remember that, like us, the knowledge that there are extraterrestrial civilizations will shock all of Earth's society and leave profound marks. We have reason to believe that the alienated forces within Earth civilization will coalesce and grow. Sorry, that's Coalesce. I can't say it properly, but if you know how to say it properly, there it is. What can he do? Sabotage? Given a time gap of 450 hours, given a time gap of 400 hours, the strategy value any traditional tactics of war or terrorism is insignificant. Which is ironic because it actually resorts to that in book 2 to some extent. and they can recover from them. To effectively contain a civilization development is to sum it across a long-term span of time. There's only one way: kill its science. The Science Council said the plan focuses on emphasizing the negative environmental effects of scientific development by showing signs of supernatural power to the population of Earth. In addition, to highlight the negative impacts of progress, we will attempt to use the series of miracles, in quotations, to construct a illusionary universe that cannot be explained by the logic of science. After all these illusions have been maintained for some time, it's possible that Trisolarian civilization may become a target of religious worship there. Then, unscientific ways of thinking will dominate scientific thinking among human intellectuals and lead to the collapse of the entire scientific system of thought. How do they create miracles? The key to miracles is that they cannot be seen as tricks. This may require to transfer certain technologies far above Earth's human technology level to alienated forces on Earth. That's too risky. Who knows who will ultimately control such technologies? That's playing with fire. Of course, which specific technology should be transferred to produce miracles require first further study. Please hold on for a moment. Science Console said. The Meta Console set up concepts. I am of the opinion that this plan will be almost useless in terms of stopping human science. But it's better than nothing, the Science Console argued. Barely, the Meta Console said in contempt. I agree with you, the principal said. This plan will only interfere slightly with human scientific development. We need a decisive action that will completely suffocate science on Earth and freeze it at its current level. Let's focus on the key here. Overall technology development depends on the advancement of basic science. And the foundation of basic science lies in the exploration of the deep structure of matter. If there's no progress in this field, there can be no major breakthroughs in science and technology as a whole. Of course, this is not specific to civilization on Earth. It is acceptable to all targets that Trisolarian civilizations to conquer. We have begun to work on this area even before we received the first extra Trisolarian communication. But we're recently stepping up effort. Now, everyone look up. What's that? The perceptors of the sky consoles lifted their heads, gazed up, and saw a ring in space, giving off a metallic glow in the sunlight. And that's extract of what is the thing, the Sophons. If you want to know what these are, again, read it, because this is going to be long enough as a video in the first place. I can probably move on anyway to the next section. Because I'm talking about themes here, not the technology. Let me get the... This is on page 416. From now on, whether it's 4 million hours or 550 trillion hours, Earth civilization technology will never achieve this fundamental breakthrough. They will remain forever at a primitive stage. The sense of Earth has been completely locked down, and the lock is so secure that humans will never be able to escape from it by their own strength. That's wonderful. Please forgive me my lack of respect for the Project Siphon. In the past, the Meta Console cell was unseen. Significant power to produce the results can lead to possible breakouts after Siphon 1 and Siphon 2 arrive on. They will have a lot of extra capability. In order to fully utilize their siphons, you will assign them in other tasks in addition to interfering with the free accelerators. For example, there will be the main means to carry the miracle plan. Siphons can create miracles? Question mark. For humans, yes. Everyone knows that high energy particles can expose film. This is one of the ways that primitive accelerators on Earth once shown individual particles. When a siphon passes through the film at high energy, it leaves behind a tiny exposed spot. If a siphon passes back and forth through the film many times, it can connect the dots to form letters or numbers, even pictures, like in embroideries. The process is very fast and far quicker than the speed at which humans expose film when taking pictures. Also, The human retina is similar to the Thessalonian one. Thus, a high energy siphon can use the same technique as to show letters, numbers, or even images on the retina. And if these little miracles can confuse or terrify humans, then the next great miracle will be sufficient to frighten scientists, no better than the bug's death. Siphons can cause background cosmic radiation to flash in their eyes. This would be very frightening for our scientists as well. And how would that be accomplished? Very simple. We've already written down software to allow a siphon to unfold itself into 2 dimensions. After the unfolding is complete, the huge plane can wrap itself around Earth. This software can adjust the membrane so that it's transparent. But the degree of transparency can be tuned in the frequencies of the cosmic microwave background. Of course, as siphons fold and unfold into different dimensions, they can display even more amazing miracles. The software for accomplishing these is still being developed, but those miracles will create a mood sufficient to divert human scientific thought onto one path. In this way, we can use use a miracle plan to effectively restrain scientific endeavors outside of the physics of Earth. And that is a highlight of how, for example, this actually works in terms of the development in the thing of how they want to contain before they actually arrive, which also actually highlights an interesting point. By working off a great deception narrative, that will legitimately do the task, because even in our current life, where there's no proof of aliens existing, ideals like this and delusions still affect people and confuse people, and therefore it is only fair enough to say then that in this system it will work as well, because people already are blindly loyal to religions and cults already for even less reasoning than this. Fear, for example, can be used to generally control people. Some people are legitimately stuck in religions, cults, or situations out of fear. Fear has the ability to paralyze and control people's lives and all that, and they are cooked in this analysis. To this extent, then, it's only fair enough to connect the two connections here successfully, that their plan necessarily is actually a smart one if it is for containment. And with this, I'll move on to the final section of the actual first book, The Free Body Problem, and I will show you a few extracts of the second book just after my final section, which will be a lot shorter than this one, which will highlight some other interesting related thoughts to it that is relevant. The final note from the main book itself is at the end, that is more specifically, I will go to page 422. This is after the moment of where they engraved in the retinas of every human, "You are bugs," to basically declare their superiority. And this one comment here defines the main spirit of humanism, or focus towards a survival instinct that the book possesses, where it says, the Trisolarians who deemed humans bugs seem to have forgotten one fact: the bugs have never been truly defeated. A small black cloud, a small black cloud covered the sun and cast a moving shadow against the ground. This was not a coming cloud, but a swarm of locusts that has just arrived. As the swarm landed in a field nearby, 3 men stood in the middle of a living shower, feeling the dignity of life on earth. Ding Yi and Wang Miao poured 2 bottles of wine with them on the ground beneath their feet as a toast for the bugs. Da Shi, thank you. Wang held out his hand. I thank you as well. Ding gripped Da Shi's other hand. Let's go back, Wang said. There's so much to do. What this is short, and what it symbolizes is basically talking about how humans themselves should no longer. Oh, I guess one thing I can add to this is this. Look at them, the bugs. Humans have used everything on their power to extinguish them. Every kind of poison, aerial sprays, introducing and cultivating their natural predators, searching for and destroying their eggs, using genetic modifications and sterilize them, burning with fire, drowning with water. Every family has bug sprays. Every desk has fly swatters under it. This long war has been going on for the entire history of human civilization, but the outcome is still in doubt. The bugs have not been eliminated; they still proudly live between the heavens and earth, and their numbers have not diminished from the time before the appearance of humans. That is the analogy which they're using to reference what humans should be doing. Basically, keep fighting until and not give up, regardless of circumstances. Keep going. Be like the bugs in the face of the Truslarian invasion. If they come, if they come and Truslarians want to call you bugs, be like bugs and don't die. Keep resisting. Keep fighting. Keep the resistance strong. Book 2. Book 2 is relevant for many reasons because Book 2 continues the direct storyline. Book 2, The Dark Forest, includes some stuff which gives increased understanding of the content of Book 1. More so, when I talk about it, I'll be talking about it in regards to the nature of how Truslarian communication with humans is, and how the relationship between Truslarian and humans are in communication style. That's important because I just think that's very interesting. As I was saying, Book 2 talks about the Truslarian human communications. And for example, it says, come on, work. Okay, working now, good. Somewhat earlier in the dead of night, Mike Evans was standing in the bow of Judgment Day as the Pacific Ocean slipped past a swash of satin beneath the heavens. Evans enjoyed talking with the distant world at times, like these, because the text deciphering displayed on his retina stood out wonderfully against the night sea and sky. This is our 20-second real-time conversation. We have come across some difficulties in our communication. Yes, Lord, I have learned that you can't actually understand a significant amount of references of material on humanity we've given to you, which highlights the dynamic here in which the human traitors are giving away information to the aliens to actually give them the means of betrayal. Yes, explaining the points very clearly, but we are unable to understand the whole. Something is different. Just one thing? Yes, but it sometimes seems as if your world is missing something. Other times that it has something extra that we don't know which. What is the area of confusion? We've carefully studied your documents and studied that the key to understanding the problem lies in a pair of synonyms. Synonyms? There are many synonyms and near synonyms in your language. In the first language we received from you, Chinese, there was words, expressions that meant for like cold and chill, heavy and weighty and long and far. What pair of synonyms created the obstacle to understanding that you mentioned? Think and say. We just learnt. We just we've just learned, to our surprise, that they are not in fact synonyms. They are not synonyms at all. To our understanding, they ought to be think and means using thought organs to conduct mental activity. Say means communicating the content of thought to a counterpoint. The latter in your world is accomplished through the modulation of vibrations in the air produced by vocal cords. Are these definitions correct? They are, but that doesn't demonstrate that think and say aren't synonyms. In our understanding, this shows they are synonyms. May I think about this for a second? Very well. We both need to think about it. For 2 minutes, Evans gazed in through at the waves undulating beneath the starlight. My lord, what are your organs of communications? We do not have organs of communications. Our brains can display our thoughts to the outside world, therefore achieving communications. Display thoughts? How's that done? The force in our brain emits electromagnetic waves on all frequencies, including what is visible light to us. They can be displayed at a significant difference. So that means that you thinking is speaking, hence they are synonyms. Oh, that's not the case for us. Even so, that shouldn't be present. That shouldn't present an obstacle to understanding these documents. True. In these areas of thought and communication, the difference between us are not large. We both have brains, and our brains produce intelligence through huge numbers of neuron connections. The only difference is that our brain waves are stronger and can be directly received by our counterpart, eliminating the need for communication organs. That's the only difference. No, I suspect the major difference might be getting lost. My lord, let me think about this game. Very well. Evans left the bow and strolled along the deck. Over the gunwale, the Pacific rose and fell suddenly in the night. He imagined it as thinking brain. My lord, let me tell you a story to prepare you for it. You need to understand the following elements: wolf, child, grandmother, and house in the forest. These elements you need to understand, except for grandmother. I know that it's a blood relation amongst humans and usually means a woman of advanced age, but actual kinship status explains more explanation. Lord, that's not important. All you need to know is that she and her children have a close relationship. She is one of the only people children trust. Understood? I'll make it simple. Grandmother had to go out, so she left her children in the house, telling them they must make sure the door is shut and not open it to anyone but her. On the road, grandmother met a wolf, which ate her and then put her clothing and assumed her appearance. Then I went to the house and came up to the door and said to the children, "I'm your grandmother. I've come back. Open the door for me." The children looked through the crack in the door and saw what looked like their grandmother. Opened the door and the wolf came into the house and ate them. Do you understand the story, my lord? Not the slightest bit. Then maybe I guessed right. First of all, the wolf wanted all along to enter the house and eat the children. Correct? Correct. It engaged in communication with children. Correct? Correct. This is why this is what's incomprehensible. In order for the children to achieve their aims, it should have had communicated with children. Why? Isn't it obvious? If there was communication between them, the children would have known that the wolf wanted to come in and eat them, and they would have opened the door. Evan stayed silent for a while. I understand, my daughter. I understand. What do you understand? Isn't what I said obvious? Your thoughts are completely exposed to the outside world. You can't hide. You can hide thoughts? Your ideals are confusing. I mean, like your thoughts and memories are transparent to the outside world, like a book placed out in public or film. Film we projected in a plaza or fish in a clear fishbowl. Totally exposed, readable, at a glaze. What maybe some elements I might mention are. I understand them all, but isn't that perfectly natural? Evans was silent again. So that's it, my lord. When you communicate face to face, everything communicated is true. It's impossible for you to cheat or lie, so you can't pursue complicated strategic thinking. We can communicate over significant differences, just not face to face. The words cheating and lying are another two that we have a hard time understanding. What society is it that thought is completely transparent? What sort of culture does it produce? What sort of politics? No scheming, no pretending. What is scheming and pretending? Ever said nothing. Human conversations organs are but an evolutionary deficiency, a necessary compensation for the fact that your brains can't emit strong wave thoughts. This is one of your biological weaknesses. Direct display of all thoughts is a superior, more efficient form of communication. A deficiency? A weakness? No, my lord, you're wrong. This time you're totally wrong. Is that so? Then let me think about it. It's a shame you can't see my thoughts. The time it takes longer when 20 minutes has passed and a text appeared. Evan strolled from the bow to stern, watching a sea of fish sleeping under the ocean. Da, 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 da. To Evan, say you look like. Da, 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 da. You are correct. Looking back at these documents, I understand them a little better. My lord, there's a long road to travel before you arrive at true understanding of human matters. I am almost afraid you'll never be able to. Indeed, there's so many. They are complicated. All I know is that I don't understand them before you are right. My lord, you need us. I'm afraid of you. The conversation stopped. This was the last time Evans received a message from Traitors. He stood at the stern watching the snow-white body of Judgment Day stretch off into the hazy night, like slipping away. The second thing from the book that's relevant is this one. This is on page 28 of book 2, where it talks about. I won't explain this context right now, but maybe later when I read more into book 2. Maybe I can explain it then. The second rule breaker has spent there several hours looking back at his life after confirming there have been no omissions. He twisted his muscles again of his numb body, reaching under the pillow, and drew out a gun, which he slowly aimed at his temple. Just then, a siphon text appeared before his eyes. Don't do that, we need you. Lord, every night I yearn that you called me for your dreams. Sorry, let me say it again. Lord, every night for a year I dreamt that you called, but the dreams went away recently. I figured I stopped dreaming, but that doesn't seem to be the case now. This is not a dream. I am in real-time communication with you. The wall breakers gave a chilly laugh. Good, it's over then. There definitely aren't any dreams on the other end. Do you require proof? Proof there aren't dreams on the other end? Proof that it's really me. Fine. Tell me something I don't know. Your goldfish are dead. Huh? That doesn't matter. I'm about to meet them in the place where there's no darkness. You should really take a look. This morning when you were distracted, you flicked a half-smoking cigarette. It landed in a fishbowl. The nicotine that leached on in the water was fatal to your fish. The second wall breaker opened his eye. If context, this is after Evans is dead. He groped for the light and went to look over a fishbowl on the small table. 5 dragon-eye goldfish were floating in the water, their white bellies on the surface, and in the mist half-smoked cigarette. I'll provide additional confirmation. Evans once gave you an encrypted letter, but the encryption has changed. He died before he was able to notify of a new password. And you've never been able to read this letter. I see the password. Camel, the brand of cigarette that poisons your fish that you poison your fish with. The second wallbaker scrambled to receive his laptop, and he waited for it to start up. Tears started streaming down his face. Lord, my lord, it's really you. Is it really you? He choked out through sobs. After the computer booted up, he opened up email attachment in the Earth Traitors organization's professionally dedicated reader. He entered a password in the pop-up box, and when the text was displayed, he no longer had any mind to read it carefully. Throwing himself onto his knee, he cried out, Lord, it really is you, my lord. When he had calmed down, he raised his head and said, his eyes wet, were you ever notified of attack on the gathering on the command attended, or the ambush at Panama Canal? Why did you cast us aside? We were afraid of you. Is it because our thoughts aren't transparent? That doesn't matter, you know. All these skills you lack: deceit, trickery, disguise, and misdirection. We use in your service. We don't know if that's true. Evan supposing it is true. The fear remains. Your Bible mentions an animal called a snake. If a snake crawled up and to you and said it would serve you, would you fear and disgust? Would your fear and disgust cease? If people told the truth, then I would overcome my disgust and fear and accept it. That would be difficult. Of course, I know that you've already been bitten once by the snake. Our once real-time notification because became possible because you gave detailed answers to our questions. There was no reason for me to tell us quite a bit of information, such as how you receive the first signal from humanity and how ciphers are constructed. It's hard for us to understand. We were not communicating via transparent display of thoughts. So why not be more selective in the information you send? That option did not exist, but it doesn't cover up as much as you imagine. It might, in fact, sorry, it might. In fact, forms of communication do exist in our world that don't require thoughts, display of thoughts, particularly in the age of technology. But transparent thoughts have become a cultural and social custom. This might be hard for you to understand, just like it's hard for me to understand you. I can't imagine that deceit and scheming are totally absent in your world. They exist, but they're far more simpler than yours. For example, in the wars on our world, opposing sides will adopt disguises. But if an enemy who becomes suspicious about the disguise, and inquires about it directly, will usually obtain the truth. That's unbelievable. You're equally unbelievable to us. You have a book on your bookshelf called "The Story of Three Kingdoms." Where am I of Three Kingdoms? You won't understand that. I understand a small part about how an ordinary person has a hard time understanding mathematics. Monograph can make some of it through enormous mental effort and by giving full play to the imagination. Indeed, that book lays out the highest level of human schemes and strategy. But our ciphers can make everything in the human world transparent, except for people's own minds. Yes, the ciphers can't read thoughts. You must know about the Wolfers Project. More than you do, it is about to be put into action. This is why we have come to you. What do you think of the project? The same feeling as you when you look at the snakes. But in a snake, the Bible helped humans gain knowledge. The Wolfers Project will be set up in one of several mazes that will seem to you and particularly tricky or treacherous. We can help you and find a way out. The difference in mental transparency gives us all the more resolve to wipe out humanity. Please help us wipe out humanity, and then we can wipe you out. My lord, the way you express yourself is problematic. Clearly, it's determined by how you communicate with your display of transparent thoughts. But in our world, even if you express your true thoughts, you must do so in an appropriately euphemistic way. For example, although you just said in according to your ideals of ETO, its overly direct formulations might repel some of our members and cause unanticipated consequences. Of course, it may be that you will never be able to learn to express yourself appropriately. It is precisely the expression of the formed thoughts that makes the exchange of information in human society, particularly in human literacy, much like a twisted maze. As far as I'm aware, the ETO is on the brink of collapse. That's because you abandoned us. Those two strikes were fatal, and now redemptionists have disintegrated, and the adventurers have maintained an organized existence. You certainly are aware of this. But most fatal blow is that of a psychological one. Your abandonment meant that the devotion of our members to Lord is being tested. To maintain the devotion, the ETO deliberately needs our Lord's support. We can't give technology. That won't be necessary so long as you go back to transmitting information to us through the siphons. Naturally, but what the ETO must do first is ensure is execute critical order. You've just read. We issued it to Evans before his death, and he ordered you to execute it, but you never solved the encryption. The rule breaker remembered the letter he had just decrypted and read over carefully. Simple enough to carry out, is it not? It's not too difficult. Is it too damn important? It used to be important now because the Humanities Warfare Project is incredibly important. Why? The text shown for well. Evans knew why, but evidently he didn't tell anyone. He was right. This is fortunate. Now we don't need to tell you why. The rule breaker was overjoyed. My lord, have you learnt to conceal? That's progress. Evans told us much, but we're still at the very beginning of, or in his words, we are at the level of your 5-year-old children. The order has given you contains one of strategies we can't learn. What do you mean, stipulation? To avoid tension, you must not reveal that it was done by the ETO. This, well, if the target is important, this requirement is only natural. To us, it's a complicated plan. Fine, I'll take care of it in accordance with Evan's wishes, my lord, and we will provide devotion to you. There's two more aspects to this book, which I think is important. The cover. This is continued by the line of saying, the second rule breaker carefully put the new goldfish into the bowl. Like Evans, he enjoyed isolation, but he needed companionship of beings other than humans. He often spoke of goldfish like he spoke to Trilarians, two forms of life whose long-term presence on Earth was looking forward to. Just then, the Siphon's text appeared on his retina. I've recently been studying the story of three kingdoms, and just like you said, deceit and trickery are an art, just like the markings of a snake. My lord, once again bring up a snake. The more beautiful the markings are on a snake, the more fearsome it looks. We didn't used to care about humanity's escaping so long as they stopped existing in the solar system. But now we have adjusted our plans and decided to prevent humanity from fleeing. Letting an enemy whose thoughts are totally opaque flee into the cosmos is very dangerous. Do you have any specific plan in mind? The fleet has made adjustments in solar system deployment. It will detour its 4 directions in the Kuiper belt and encircle the solar system. If humanity really does flee, your fleet will be too late to do anything by that time. That is true, so it requires distance. Sorry, motorbike there. That is true, so it requires distance. The next mission of the ETO is to halt or delay humanity's escape plans. The Wallbreaker smiled. My lord, you really don't have to worry about that all that much. No large scale humanity will ever happen. Ever given the present limited space for technological development, humanity might be able to escape in a traditional ships. The greatest obstacle to flight is not technology. Then it is disputes amongst countries. The UN special sessions may resolve the problem. If it can't, then developed nations are entirely capable of brushing aside the opposite of developing countries through. The greatest obstacle of flight is not disputes amongst other countries either. Then what is it? Disputes amongst people. The question of who goes and who stays behind. That doesn't seem like a problem to us. We thought so at first, but it turns out that it is but it turns out to be insurmountable obstacle. Can you explain? You may be familiar with human history, but you will probably find this hard to comprehend. Who goes and who remains involved? Basic human values which in the past promoted progress in human society, but which, in the face of ultimate disaster, are a trap. Right now, the majority of humanity has not realized how deep the trap is. Lord, please believe my words, no humans can escape this trap. And the final thing, and this will end the thing, is this. It's about defeatism. And this is for context when in the human side, which isn't traitors, is on page 74, book 2. Commander, in my opinion, the present situation is dangerous. The remark drew attention of several officers, and Zhang Beihai continued, please forgive me for speaking poignantly. For one thing, we have been meeting all day and we are all tired. So now listen, I'm not blunt. A few of us are laughing now, but for the rest of us are mired in fatigue. More importantly, I'm truly worried. This battle we are facing has a force disparity unprecedented in the history of human warfare. So I believe that it is for the indefinite future, the greatest danger facing the Space Force is defeatism. Its threat cannot be overstated. The spread of defeatism will not only result in erosion of morale, but also lead to the total collapse of Space Force military power. Shang Wenjie nodded again. I agree. Defeatism is our greatest enemy. At present, the military commission is acutely aware. This is why political and ideological work in service will be critical. Once the basic units of the space unit are in place, the work will become more complex. Sang Bahai flipped open his notebook. The work report says, he said, since the establishment of the Space Force, our primary focus is political and ideological work amongst the troops. Has been conducted a survey of the overall ideological status of the officers and soldiers. Since the organization of the new branch is simple at the present time, with few members and few administrative levels, the survey was conducted through informal meetings and personal interactions and corresponding forums set up on the intranet. The results were worrying. Defeatist thinking is prevalent and spreading swiftly among the troops. The mentality of a sizable proportion of our comrades consists of terror towards the new enemy and a lack of confidence in the future of war. Social defeatism steps primarily in the worship of technology and the underestimation of complex dismissal of the role of human initiative and the human spirit in war. It is a deployment and extension of techno-triumphalism and the weapons decide everything theory that has cropped up and in the armed forces in recent years. The trend is particularly pronounced among highly educated officers. Defeatism amongst the troops takes the following forms. 1. Treating one's duty in the Space Force as an ordinary job. Despite working with dedication and responsibility, lacking enthusiasm and sense of mission, and doubting the ultimate significance of one's work. 2. Passive waiting, believing that the outcome of the war depends on the scientists and engineers, believing that prior to the outbreak of war, breakthroughs in basic research and key technologies. The Space Force is just a pipe dream and subsequent confusion about the importance of its present work, being satisfied simply with completing tasks related to establishing a military branch lacking innovation. 3. Harboring unrealistic fantasies, requesting use for hibernation technology to leap 4 centuries in the future and take part in doomsday battle directly. A number of younger comrades have already expressed this wish, and one has submitted a formal application. On the surface, this is a positive state of mind and desire to throw oneself in the front lines, but it is essentially just another form of defeatism. Lacking confidence in victory and doubting the significance of our present work, a soldier's dignity becomes the only pillar sustaining work and life. 4. The opposite above, doubts about dignity of soldier and belief that the military traditional moral code is no longer suitable for battlefield. And the fighting to the end has no meaning. The belief of a soldier's dignity only exists when there is someone to see it, and when a battle ends in defeatism and no humans are left in the universe, then this dignity loses its significance. Although only a minority hold this notion, the thing is of worth in the Space Force is essentially harmful. And that is a interesting dynamic in which also is in play regarding book 2. And I hope that gives some clarity as to why I find this book quite interesting and covers the themes as described by the book itself. And with that, I'll be ending this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment below what you thought.